Well, good evening. Welcome to Kase Filters UK's Sunday session. My name is Ruth Taylor. I'm here tonight again, leading these sessions for Kase Filters, and delighted to be with Vanda Ralevska, who I will introduce you to in just a couple of moments. But first up, if you haven't been here before, I feel a bit of an air hostess going over this every time, but in case you haven't been here before, there is a live chat box if you want to use that throughout the next half hour or so. If you want to ask Vanda any questions, please do that. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Just so you're aware as well, the replay of tonight will be available pretty much as soon as it's done, around about 7:30 or so. So if you want to watch again, or if you want to share that with anybody, then you can do that as well right here on the YouTube page. And I think that is about it. If you are putting anything in the chat, just be aware there's a few seconds delay before it gets to us. So we will get to that as soon as we can. And feel free to chat to each other as well. Let us know where you're from. I'm seeing a few people in the chat there already. So we are going to get going. As I said, Vanda is here tonight. Vanda is a London-based, I believe, photographer, landscape photographer, seascape photographer, street photographer, many things. I'm very, very excited to find out a bit more. Vanda, I was saying to you just before we started that I've been trawling through your website in the best possible way, and one of the quotes you've got on there, and you've got many quotes on there because you are an artist, a writer, a poet, all these things which we'll chat again about shortly. But one of the quotes that you put up there on your front page is this. It says, "Photography is an art of observation. It's about finding something in an ordinary place. I find it has little to do with the things you see and everything to do with the way you see them." And I love that. And I think that's maybe a great jumping off point, maybe just to let us know how you got started in photography and just a little bit about yourself. You're not from the UK, I believe. Is it Czechoslovakia, former Czechoslovakia?
So I grew up in what was then Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. I grew up in an industrial city called Ostrava. I guess photography was not sort of passed on from generation to generation in our family. So I got to it in my teens. It sounds a bit cliche.
Not at all. Same here. Same story. Yeah.
And lots of other people. I think that's how we sort of get to photography. So my dad gave me a little camera. I actually still have it. This little.
Oh, fantastic.
Konica. He never realized that the gift he gave me was one of the most precious gifts he could give me, because it isn't just a camera. It wasn't just a camera he gave me. It was also the love for the outside world, and that sort of curiosity to explore it, and also the ability to find the beauty in the ordinary things. As I said, I grew up in an industrial city. It was actually a coal mining city, and even that harsh environment I grew up in didn't stop me from finding things that I loved and the beauty. I must admit that I never really truly appreciated when I was living there. Only when I moved out. And that's always the case, isn't it? When you live somewhere, you don't really appreciate it until you move out, and then you suddenly find out, oh, it's actually a very interesting place.
Yeah. Can I go back now and take some more pictures? Yeah, you're right.
That's what I've been doing over the last few years as well. Appreciating the city much more.
Now, Vanda, you're not actually a full-time photography. You actually have a day job, shall we say, as software developer. Is that right? Yes. Is there any reason why perhaps you haven't decided to take that step? I mean, a lot of our landscape photographers, they've taken the step at some point, usually when they've maybe got the space and the finances to give it a go. But it's obviously not an easy life. I mean, has the last year solidified the decision in your mind as to what you do, keeping it as a hobby as opposed to pursuing it full time?
Yes. So it is. There are other factors as well. My mum was very practical, and she led me to be very practical. So she always said, you have to have a practical job. And So I got a practical job, so I have got one. But there is this side of me that is absolutely against all the practical. Yeah, I'm very emotional and I'm very romantic, and I have got this side that wants to be free of anything that must do's and have to do's and should do's. But that practicality that my mum really got into me, it still stays there. And I guess the fact that I have to earn money and I have to pay the bills, and I haven't got, I guess I haven't got the courage to completely quit everything,
Yeah.
and to try and risk it.
I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's even necessarily. It's not the decision for everybody, and it's not necessarily. It's not an easy job, as everybody we've spoken to over the last few months has said. You know, when you go full time in photography, you're never going to be rich doing it. You know, maybe the tiny percent, but. I mean, we did a poll with some of our customers recently and asked, you know, if you could go full time, would you with your photography? And it was half and half, which was very interesting to me because a lot of people, you know, once you go full time with it, you kind of lose in a way some of the joy of it because you're having to focus on all the practicalities around it. Whereas if you keep it as your kind of your passion and your hobby and your weekend and your holidays, it's maybe easier to keep the kind of, you know, the purity and the love of it. So I definitely don't think it's a case of you know, if you love it, you've got to go full time with it. I think you know, it works differently for different people. But yeah, it's interesting. You have said, I've got lots of quotes from you tonight, Vanda, because you've got some beautiful writing on your website. And I like this. Beauty is not only in the breathtaking, sweeping vistas, it can also be found in simple views and in little detail, which looking at your images on your website, you do have a lot of intimate shots, shall we say, maybe not so much of the kind of the grand ones, which maybe some landscape photographers go for. Do you have a preference when it comes to that? Landscape intimate or kind of sweeping vistas?
I grew to have a preference in quiet landscapes and simpler views, but I can never grow out of the sweeping vistas. But another hobby of mine is walking, and those views that you get when you walk in the countryside, in the mountains, and on the seaside. They are absolutely breathtaking, and you can't help yourself not to capture them. Sometimes it's actually really difficult to capture them because sometimes you actually cannot do it justice, and then you just don't worry about it.
I mean, I love the fact that you don't feel you have to capture them. Also, there's something else that you said, that sometimes you put the camera away and you just want to enjoy the view. And that, as a photographer, I think that's very difficult, especially in landscape, because you just want to take the picture, you want to capture it. So being able to just go, no, put the camera down and sit and enjoy it is it takes quite a bit of strength to do that, I think, sometimes.
And it can actually get distracting, you know, because sometimes you focus so much on photography that you forget what's actually happening around you. So sometimes it's actually quite good for you to sit down and just enjoy the view. Yeah. And maybe capture it later on, but just take the time to take the breath and enjoy the view.
I mean, do you think when you've taken a lot of intimate shots on your website, is that something you think your eye has to be trained more towards that? Maybe when you're starting out, you know, the big grand shots that are in front of you, they're easier to identify as a shot to be taken. But I think maybe the artists and a lot of people, you know, they see the intimate shots maybe quicker than other people do. Or do you think that's something that you just develop over time if you choose to look for it?
I think you develop it over time. You start seeing things. It's very difficult because it comes very naturally to me. But if I was to give advice to somebody, I would probably say, just try to be open-minded and walk into the scene and let the scene come to you. Let the scene speak to you and let the pictures come to you. Just look around and try to connect with the place somewhere here inside. Don't try to do what other people do. It could be a place where everybody else is going, but you can always find something that is very unique to you if you are open-minded, if you really look.
Yeah, I love that. We've got a question in here from the chat from Philly and Paul. Benita Brook, they're saying, hi Vanda, in this past year that has been very difficult for us all, what do you think you'll take away from the whole experience, especially in your photography?
It was a very difficult, I do agree, Philly and Paul, lovely to speak to you. It was a very difficult time, and I must admit, to start with, last March, or the first 3 months from March to sort of June, I was in a bad place, photography wise. Because I have a job, at least I focused on the job. That was fine. But photography wise, I thought I completely lost it. I thought that I suddenly don't have any drive. I don't know what to do with myself. We obviously couldn't go out anywhere, so I couldn't take any pictures. And because I'm an outdoor person, I didn't even try what other people were trying to take pictures of inside. And I was in a bad place then. But when the lockdown stopped, the first lockdown stopped, and we started walking again, my boyfriend and I, it suddenly started to come back. And what I would take from it was just be patient with yourself, because there are times when you won't be able mentally, emotionally take any photographs. Maybe you won't feel motivated, you won't feel inspired, but things like that happen. Just be patient and let it come to you naturally. Just go for a walk, and one day you will start seeing again, and you will want to pick up that camera again. And another thing is, stay local, and get to know your local area, because there is beauty everywhere, even around the corner. And with all these lockdowns last year and this year, we don't have a choice. We can't travel anywhere. So just find something around you, and it will make you feel better. And
that's
yeah.
Sorry, no, on you go.
It's more rewarding. It is more rewarding if you find something that somebody else would walk past by without noticing, and you notice it and you capture it.
I think that's one of the big takeaways for a lot of people. I mean, photographers and otherwise over the past year has been what they've discovered in their local areas. And as you say, you're kind of forced to look for things locally that you would have walked past maybe before. So yeah, I think probably for a lot of photographers, it has kind of opened up their mindset a wee bit in a way that you may not necessarily wanted it to have happened that way, but it's it's been a difficult year, but you're right, there's been silver linings and things that you can learn from that. So Philly and Paul, hopefully that answered that question. Another quote from you, Vanda. In fact, I think it's from the same one as before. You've said that beauty can be found in the rain, and even on grey and dull days. There's always that little bit of extra in the ordinary if you're willing to look deeper under the surface. Now, I've seen a lot of your street shots. You've got projects on the rain, which I absolutely love. You've got all sorts of different projects in different conditions. Do you have favorite shooting conditions, or is it all dependent on what you're shooting?
Well, I do have favorite conditions, but it does depend on what I'm shooting as well. I've learned a lot of lessons by working in different projects, but my favorite conditions, if I can sum it up, will be atmospheric. It will be early mornings. I am a very early morning person, and I love night. I love turning up in the place in the dark, and I love watching the day, just the day start. So I love the blue hour and the pre-dawn light. And if the mist comes into it, magic. And that's what I love most. Then it will be autumnal mist, autumnal colors. Winter, the lack of color in winter, the simplicity and the silence and the beautiful snowfall, which we don't really get much here, but we have to travel for that. Never mind.
Yeah. I've noticed some of your winter pictures actually, and I was thinking that's pretty sure that's not in the UK. Where do you travel to get these ones?
I have quite a few from High Tatras, where I spent a couple of Christmases with my mum. So they are linked to very emotional times, very happy times with my mum. Also Scotland. So,
Okay.
I absolutely love Scotland. So I'm not jealous that you live in there.
It's like what you were saying earlier. When you're in a place, you don't appreciate it as much. I think it's when you leave that you get that appreciation back for it. Andrew's got a question in the chat. He's saying, when you process your images, Vanda, are you influenced by other artistic sources such as music? Because you mentioned that you love the quiet image.
I guess not when processing, but I love music. I love listening to music, and I love listening to music when processing. But I usually listen to music that is emotionally charged. I would say again, it's more, I suppose, quiet. I would say. I would say an example would be a group that my boyfriend and I discovered quite recently. They call Haven. They're a Dutch group. A couple of men. One of them is a singer, songwriter, and another one is a composer. And it's an absolutely beautiful music. They are that kind of example of how music can be healing, have healing powers, and that's what that is nice when you actually processing photographs and listening to that kind of music. It also, I guess, helps you create that image that you had in your mind.
Yeah.
I can very much relate to that kind of music and that processing.
Fantastic. I mean, speaking of post-processing, from more of maybe of a practical point of view, I know you love black and white images. You've got some fantastic black and white sets, a lot of high key images as well, and you do like to portray that feeling of serenity, which I know you do a lot of long exposures to get there. But when it comes to post-processing, do you have a particular approach to that? Do you do a lot of work in post, or do you try and scale it back?
I try not to spend too much time in front of the computer, but you sometimes you do, because sometimes when you're shooting in RAW, you've got all the information in the image, but that image is nothing like what you have seen. So then you start sort of processing so that you can actually create that image that you have seen or you have experienced. It's more about literally experience and feeling the image. So I do use Lightroom for the sort of basic adjustments, and then in Photoshop, whatever I need to do in Photoshop to create the image that I had in my mind.
Zoltan would like to know, Vanda, do you listen to music while out shooting, or do you let yourself focus on nature and all the things that surround you?
That's a good question. I listen to music when walking, and when I'm walking on my own. When we're walking with my boyfriend, I just enjoy the walk and the quiet and the sounds in nature. And the same with photography. I don't listen to music when I take photographs.
Okay.
I suppose it helps if you listen to the natural sounds. It helps you connect with the place.
Yeah. Zoltan, hopefully that helped your question. I've got another question just popped in here from Dennis. He said, what's the latest bit of kit that you've bought in the last year, if any?
Oh yeah, I did actually. I did buy. I thought I didn't, but I did. I treated myself to a new lens, a telephoto lens, a Fuji. I use as a camera. I use Fujifilm X-T3.
Okay.
And I just treated myself to 100 to 400 mil lens, which I have only tried once because I haven't really had an opportunity to do more. But hopefully in the next few months, when we get out of the lockdown and start
soon, be able to travel around a bit more. Memorable moments, Vanda, good or bad, in photography. Do you have any? Any that stick out in particular?
I have loads, and we could be here for all night. So maybe because I guess every time I managed to capture something beautiful that I consider to be beautiful is memorable for me, and it's all in the pictures that I have. So maybe as an example, I could use the picture that you used to promote um, this live session.
The lighthouse.
The lighthouse, yes.
Yes.
It is Fanat Lighthouse, as probably a lot of people recognize, because it's a famous place, and it's a honeypot
Honeypot spot, yeah.
I had never been there before, and it was on our very memorable trip to do the Wild Atlantic Way in Ireland in 2016. Oh my God, it was a long time ago. And I just remember sneaking out of the room. I left my boyfriend to have his beauty sleep because, you know, it was too cruel to get out that early in the morning. And I remember just driving from the hotel, and it was completely pitch black. And that excitement you've got in you don't know what to expect, and you don't know how to get there, and you don't know where to find the spot to see what you want to see. But once I saw the lighthouse light in the distance, I just calmed down, and I thought, no, it will be all fine. It will be okay. I will get there. And then I parked up, and then I found a way through the darkness. There were some old barracks, army barracks as well, so I went around them, and then I suddenly got to the place, and the view was absolutely breathtaking. As you can see, hopefully from the picture, hopefully I did it a justice, but it was changing every few minutes. So this was the first one I took. And that was just still sort of the end of blue hour, and started the colours of the dawn, and they were purple, and then the purple changed into pink. And it was actually the first time we had I had a little bit of waves as well, because all those 2 weeks we had just really calm Atlantic Ocean, and suddenly it just started to calm down, and the sun came up, and everything, all the magic was gone in a few minutes. But that moment will stay with me.
And as you said, captured forever, which is, yeah, the absolute joy of it. Kieran would like to know, where's the first place that you'll go for photography when you can? And is there somewhere that you've never been that you would like to visit, which is actually what I was going to ask you next. I know you say location isn't necessarily the be-all and end-all, but when you can travel again, A, where would you like to? And B, if you could go anywhere, where would that be?
Well, the first place where I'm going to go is... last year when we finally could walk, we finished the Thames Path, and I really fell in love with the river, with the Thames. And I started a project. I am not going to reveal much about it because I haven't got enough to show yet, but that will be a place where I'm going to go first, the Thames estuary.
Okay.
And the place where I would like to go, where I haven't been yet, there are a lot of places, but I suppose I'd like to go somewhere where there is lots of snow. The Dolomites will be probably one on the list. We're also talking about going to Canada one day. Wow. So hopefully that will happen. But anywhere in Scandinavia as well, Finland, Sweden, like to go to Norway one day, maybe Iceland. But I suppose Finland and Sweden would be two countries I'd like to see.
Immediately on your bucket list. Yeah, I think there's a lot of photographers with a lot of long lists at this stage, just desperate to get moving. You mentioned this kind of a wee bit earlier, but just in terms of advice for people getting started in landscape photography, is there anything particular that you would pass on to them, or is it you know, as you said before, about, you know, being passionate about the place and letting yourself kind of get immersed in where you are?
Well, first, I suppose, first of all, this is the sort of the classic advice: learn how to use your equipment and learn the theory. But I would not get hung up on the theory. It's good to know it. One of my favorite photographers, Josef Subek, a Czech photographer, he said, theory is all right, but it's like eating. When you overeat, you feel sick.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you need to know, but that's where it finishes. And then when you go out, it's like learning to drive. You know, when you drive, then you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Don't think about the equipment, and don't even, I guess, don't think too much about composition. Go out with the open mind and feel, and photograph what you feel, not what you see. Connect with the place, and don't compromise too much. If you find yourself that you have to compromise, just put the camera away. Just enjoy the scene, but don't compromise too much, because if you do, it means that there is no picture. And it doesn't matter if there is no picture, because next time you go there, there will be different conditions and there will be the right picture for you.
That's brilliant. Favorite filters? Obviously, you love to shoot long exposures, so I'm guessing you make heavy use of ND filters. But do you have a favorite Kase filter in your kit?
It's definitely ND filters, and it would be the 6 and 10 stop filters. Exactly for that reason. And the long exposures, I like long exposures for a lot of reasons. One of them is it comes down. You know, I set up the scene, put the filter on, press the shutter, and actually you can enjoy the view. So you don't have to
do anything. You have to just do nothing for
stand there and enjoy actually the view around you. So that would be one of the reasons. And another reason that is because it also conveys the calm and the peace. And that's what I like, the sort of a peaceful atmosphere. So that would be the 6 and 10 stop filters. But I also use ND grads, especially the reverse grad. That saved me a few times because the exposure between the sky and the foreground is never right. And if you can, you can use obviously you can use bracketing and compensation. But I do like using the filters and trying to get it right in the camera if I can.
Absolutely. Just seeing another question coming in here from Andrew. He says, as you've mentioned, go with the feeling. Does that mean you don't plan your photography trips, as in you go on a non-planned basis?
Mostly, yes. I just mostly go out. I am terrible with planning, and I'm terrible with making decisions. So I just have to go. I just pick the place. Even if I'm working on a project and I know which place I want to go to, I try not to expect anything. And I try to be open-minded. Again, if you expect things, if you plan what you want to shoot, then you might overlook something else. But you do need to plan to a certain point. Obviously, you need to plan to go to a place at the right time, because of the light, because of the tides, and because of the weather. But the weather doesn't really worry me as much. But the tides are very, very important.
You had a series of shots I saw on your website, middle of the night, I believe, or possibly early hours of the morning. I think in Venice. Was that in Venice? I mean, was that something that you'd planned to do, or was it a case of, I wonder how amazing these streets would look with just the kind of the lights glistening off the, the wet walls and the canals and stuff? I mean, that was fascinating. I do not see many landscape photographers doing nighttime shots, and I personally love it because it just fascinates me. But was that a planned thing, or how did that come about?
I can't really remember, because I guess it comes from the fact that I used to like sunrises, and then I started to turn up in the place earlier and earlier, and then Then you suddenly find out you actually turn up in a place and it's completely dark, and you realize that actually this is a good time to take
Yeah.
photographs as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it just came sort of naturally
Mm.
from that. I do absolutely love night photography. Even now, when during the last lockdown, I don't go out, but I have sort of 1 week, 1 day a week when I walk out of the house and have a little walk around the houses and perhaps get to the park. But I just make a point. It's only local. It's only once a week, and it's really, really early in the morning. So I get out. I get out in the dark, and I photograph the streets, just ordinary streets basically at night, and absolutely enjoy it.
I love it. I mean, I love it. I personally love looking at that kind of thing. So it's fantastic. Now, you've mentioned obviously you are an artist. You take pictures. You write poetry. You love music. I know that's enough to be getting on with along with a day job. But do you have any other hobbies or interests besides those?
It would be walking. Walking is it just goes with the photography, I guess. And this is something that my boyfriend and I have in common. This is our passion, and we absolutely love walking. And when you do so, also you can take it as a recce, and you know that you discover by walking, you actually discover lots of beautiful views that you wouldn't normally if you just stayed near the car. So then I have got places where I can go back to.
Fantastic. No, I mean, time's about running out on us. That's half an hour gone. But just, you mentioned your projects, and I mentioned that your website has got, you can sit, wrap yourself up in your website for hours and just look through all your different galleries, your projects. So obviously you're big into those, which I think is fantastic. Do you have any future plans either for projects or for anything else? Obviously, once lockdown eases over the next little while, what's coming up for you?
Yes, definitely. I have got this project I mentioned that I'm working on, which will be around the Thames.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to reveal too much because I haven't got enough to actually share yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one of them. I'm working on a couple that I have been working on for a few years, and I would love to publish a book for these two. And it's all about the English seaside.
Oh, I love it.
So I am going to try by the end of this year. I'm going to try to put together a proposal and see if I can publish or self-publish.
That is exciting. Yeah, well, I mean, let us know how it goes, because those, I think, were some of my favorite images on your website. Was just going through all the English seaside shots. They were, it's seeing somebody else's point of view, and especially when you were taking them in the closed season. I think it's fantastic just seeing that style of photography. So that's exciting. I hope that all works out, and do let us know. I'll be first in line for that. But honestly, that's, I think, about time for us. So just briefly, if people want to find out more, I've mentioned your website. What is your website, and do you have any other ways people can find out more? Social media, or I don't know if you do YouTube?
I unfortunately don't do YouTube. Well, yet I'm saying yet, but I'm not very good at being in front of the camera. This took a lot to be in front of this camera. But on my website, mylandscapes.uk. I am also on Facebook, Vanda Ralevska Photography. I'm also on Instagram as My Landscapes. I don't really use Twitter very much. So pretty much just the Facebook.
Okay. My Landscapes is the place to go. Vanda, it's honestly been an absolute pleasure. I could chat with you for at least another half hour, but it is time, I think, for us to wrap up. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And hopefully everybody who's joined in has enjoyed it as well. And thank you so much to everybody for your questions. Hopefully we've been able to answer those for you. We will be back in a fortnight's time, in 2 weeks' time, on, I think it's the 11th, just double checking here. Yeah, Sunday the 11th of April, with Jack Lodge, who's a Dorset Dorset-based landscape photographer. So do come back for that. If you want to watch this one again, as I said at the beginning, it should be available right here on the Kase Filters UK YouTube channel pretty much as soon as we're done. Hopefully, maybe give it a few minutes. So if you want to watch it or share it, do check that out. Kasefilters.com is a place to go if you want to see any of the upcoming schedule of photographers that we've got lined up. We've got, I looked at it a few days ago and got a shock when I saw that it's gone all the way up to the end of the year. So it's going to be a busy year, but it's going to be good fun. So do check that out, kasefilters.com. But yeah, that's it from us. So from me, from everybody else at Kase Filters UK, and from Vanda as well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you in a fortnight's time. Have a good rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Good night.